Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
I interviewed 140 activists from around the world to get their best practices for everything from leafleting and writing letters to editors to tabling and doing corporate campaigns.
A Practical Guide to Animal Activism. Books by Mark Hawthorne. Vegan. Part 1 of 2. Continue watching to find out more.
Vegan, because a blood-dripping mouth is not a good sight to behold.
It's a beautiful day to join in peaceful appreciation of God's abundant blessings. Loving viewers, I am Kira. The kind-hearted people of Saint Helena invite you to pray for the whole of humanity to remember their true celestial nature. Welcome to part 1 of the 2-part series entitled A Practical Guide to Animal Activism, books by Mark Hawthorne. Vegan. Mark Hawthorne is an American writer and animal people rights advocate whose work on behalf of animal people has appeared in such vegan magazines as Satya, Veg News, Leica, and The Vegan. He is also the author of 4 books on animal people rights, and social justice. Today, we are privileged to invite Mark Hawthorne to introduce his books. Mark first shares his turning points on the journey to becoming vegan.
I grew up eating animals, but I always considered myself to be a compassionate person. In 1992, I was living in Europe. I was living in Germany, and I decided for my birthday, I would go to Spain, to Pamplona, and run with the bulls in Pamplona, which is an annual festival. It takes place every July. I went to the event and ran with the bulls and didn't really think much of it. And then everybody in the event ends up in the bull ring. So they have these bulls running around in the bull ring, some smaller bulls, and they are all being taunted by the participants, by the people who ran with the bulls. I was sitting up in the stands at this time, and people are hitting these bulls with newspapers and they're taunting them. And I just felt ashamed. I felt ashamed that I was there. I felt ashamed that I had participated in this event that I had looked forward to. It was the first moment in my life when I felt there was something beyond me, that there was a connection that humans had with animals that we have to protect them. And I wish I could say that I went vegan right then, or even vegetarian, but I didn't. But it was a seed was planted. And a couple months later, I moved to India, and I lived in Ladakh in the Himalayas with a Buddhist family. I lived there for 2 months, and they had a big garden, and almost all the food that I ate came from the garden. I didn't grow rice, but otherwise everything came from the garden. Well, as it got close to winter, they didn't have electricity in the house where I was living, so there was no refrigerator. So as winter approached, they dug a big hole in the garden, and they harvested the fruits and vegetables in the garden, and then they buried them to preserve them. And then they let a cow who lived across the path come into the garden to nibble on the stalks and stems that remained. And I was in the garden during this time. I was so close to this beautiful cow and these big brown eyes, and she was looking at me and I was looking at her. And I just realized that she has every right, every desire to live as anyone does. And at that point, I stopped eating cows because I realized also that I had been living basically vegan for 2 months and I felt so good. I felt good physically and mentally, but also spiritually. You know, there was something about being in this Buddhist environment, which was very compassionate and was very much about honoring sentient life, that spiritually it felt very good to me. And so I came back to the United States, and it took, unfortunately for me, I feel sad about it, but it took me another decade, almost 9 years, to go vegan. But when I did, it was because I was reading books like Diet for a New America by John Robbins, and it had me questioning my consumption of eggs and dairy. And so once I realized that I could live in the United States or anywhere without eggs and dairy, I stopped. So that was in 2001. I became an ethical vegan at that point and have been very, very happy about it ever since.
Once I stopped eating and using animals, I felt I could finally address a question that had been bothering me for a long time. What right do we have to exploit other creatures? Now I understand that we have no right, and my motivations are primarily ethical. Michaela Copenhaver, vegan.
Conscientious viewers, let's take a moment to pray that all people swiftly adopt the planet-protecting vegan lifestyle. We'll be right back here on Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to A Practical Guide to Animal Activism, books by Mark Hawthorne, Vegan, Part 1 of 2. Mark Hawthorne tells us why he became an animal people rights activist.
Becoming an ethical vegan for me, it quickly became about doing something more for animals. And I realized that it was not just about not eating them, but it was about advocating on their behalf. So I began writing articles about them for magazines such as Veg News and Hinduism Today. I did some articles for them about animals and compassion. And so I also started becoming active in my community, doing protests against circuses and against the consumption of animals, and doing leafleting. I realized that we really needed to do more to speak up for animals than we have. And so that's why I wanted to write books, and I wanted to be more active in the community.
In 2008, Mark Hawthorne published Striking at the Roots, a practical guide to animal activism to share some of the most effective ways to speak out for animal people rights. In 2018, he released a revised edition that accounts for the changing times.
Now more than ever, people are speaking out for animals. Animals used for food, entertainment, experiments, and for clothing. People are using a variety of techniques to make a difference, including sharing vegan foods with family and friends, leafleting at colleges, volunteering at sanctuaries and shelters, and asking their favorite restaurants to offer more vegan options. But they're also lobbying, demonstrating, and even taking direct action. All these techniques and more are explored in the new 10th anniversary edition of Striking at the Roots, a practical guide to animal activism. In this richly expanded handbook on speaking out for animal protection, activists from around the world discuss how various models of activism have been successful and how you can become involved. It explains where to begin, what to expect, and how to ensure your message is heard. This is a 10th anniversary edition, and for the book I interviewed 140 activists from around the world to get their best practices for everything from leafleting and writing letters to editors to tabling and doing corporate campaigns. The book emphasizes that really almost anyone can do something to help animals, whether it's as simple as making vegan food for family or volunteering at a shelter. And one of the most important aspects of the book, I think, is the chapter on activist burnout, advocating ways that activists can take care of themselves physically, mentally, and spiritually. I believe burnout is such an important issue, and sadly it's overlooked. And it's such an important issue that the new edition devotes more time to it, more space to it. And it's also updated regarding social media. You know, social media has changed a lot in the 10 years since I had written the book. And so there's a lot more activists can do online through social media.
Striking at the Roots received many positive reviews from famous vegan activists.
Brilliant, easy to read, full of real-life experiences and practical examples. If you want to make your life count, influence others, and save a few thousand lives, this book is your roadmap. Give it to everyone you know. Ingrid Newkirk.
Striking at the Roots is a practical field guide for animal rights activists that covers a wide spectrum of strategies and tactics for dealing with the media, the courts, the streets, and those foul, dark places of horror where animals are so cruelly treated, and where compassionate activists must reluctantly venture in pursuit of effective intervention. If you're serious about helping animals, then you should seriously read this book, Captain Paul Watson.
Our sincere gratitude to Mark Hawthorne for dedicating his time and skills towards protecting the rights of our animal people co-inhabitants. We look forward to hearing more about his works and insights in the next episode of this series. For more information on Mark Hawthorne's books, please visit markhawthorne.com.
Why do you have to help Ukraine? Wait until you and your family members and friends face the same fate. Then you will know the answer.
It's been a pleasure to have you, our noble viewers, with us today. Join us again on Saturday, June 18th, for part 2 of A Practical Guide to Animal Activism, books by Mark Hawthorne, vegan. Coming up next is food allergies, tips for eating safely, right after noteworthy news here on Supreme Master Television. In the grace of God, may we all soon live in a harmonious and peaceful vegan world.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/UL.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule et suprememastertv.com/UL.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/UL.
รายการของเรามีให้หลายภาษาโปรดดู suprememastertv.com/schedule และ suprememastertv.com/UL